a significant impact on the retirement crisis by educating and empowering financial advisors to better serve their clients. This interview is part of the How I Serve series, where we interview top financial advisors who are making a difference in the lives of their clients.
Thanks for downloading this episode of The Resilient Advisor. My name is Jay Coulter, and this is part of the How I Serve series, where I interview top financial advisors who share their story of how they built their business, as well as how they are serving their clients and their community. Today's guest is Chris McAlpin, managing partner at Sound Financial Strategies. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Man, thank you for having me, Jay. I'm glad to be on here. We've done a lot of good work together, buddy. I appreciate you including us here.
I know. I got to tell you, I'm excited to have you on because I know you have a unique story that'll be beneficial not only for advisors that are listening, but really for your clients. So let's get started with how you got started in the financial services industry.
How did I get started in the financial services industry? Did an internship in college with Dean Witter. And, like a lot of internships, they didn't have a lot for me to do. And after a week or so, I was making cold calls for one of the stockbrokers. Unlicensed cold calls back in the 90s. I'm sure nobody was enforcing that. And I remember asking him, if somebody asked me for a stock quote, what should I do? He said, kid, if somebody asks you for a stock quote, you need to become a stockbroker. And the next day on one of the phone calls, somebody asked me for a stock quote. He said, all right, kid, maybe you should become a stockbroker. And Mama was a math teacher, and so I could do a little bit of math, and I had kind of a quick mouth, and so it kind of fit. After a few years of working, learning sales, learning service with automatic data, made my way back into the industry through New York Life. Met Sammy Dean, one of the founding partners at Sound Financial, at church. And I offered to take him to lunch and said he was a CFP, he was successful. I wanted to learn how to be a successful financial planner. Sammy laughed, and he knew I didn't have any money. I had a pregnant wife at home, and I'm a brand new career. He paid for lunch, thankfully. Ended up recruiting me. Ended up at Sound Financial, and over time became a partner. They retired. The two founding partners retired a couple of years ago. We bought them out, and now Joel and I own the company, and I'm the managing partner. And so it's been a wonderful journey. Along that way, there was a time where just how God changed my life. And I remember reading a book by John Maxwell, Your Roadmap to Success, and it walked you through these questions. What do you like to do? What are some of your favorite topics to study? And all the jokes aside, my favorite topic to study then and still is now, it's just the Bible. Love to see what God's word says about all types of areas of life. But I enjoyed business, and I enjoyed investments, and I enjoyed helping people be successful. And getting the opportunity to be a financial advisor allowed me to put all of that together. And being an opportunity, getting to be the business owner also allowed me to scratch that entrepreneurial itch and grow a business and be creative in that arena. And so all of that has landed me here today, being the managing partner, running a business, but still getting to be a financial advisor and serve our clients individually as well.
I know your faith is interwoven in your business, in your relationships with your clients, and we're definitely going to touch on that. I, like you, got started in a Dean Witter bold pill and cold calling, and it really isn't financial advice. It wasn't financial planning. We were slinging stocks back then, and the industry evolved. And those folks that did not evolve from that, well, they ended up, not in the business anymore. Tell us about your evolution from slinging stocks to providing real financial advice.
Oh man, slinging stocks. There's a side of it that was fun. It was just the boiler room days. And I set all some of the ethics of those days aside, because you were in those bullpens. They were not the most ethical places. They certainly weren't a wholesome place for a young man to go learn about money. In fact, I learned a lot of bad ideas about money. I learned a lot of bad investment ideas too. And what you learn, though, if you took the good side of what you're taught in sales, especially back then, 20, 25 plus years ago, back in that generation, you learned how to communicate to people, and you learned how to listen a lot more than talk. And you learned how to ask good questions. And if you evolved out of that sales pitch, which you were taught, and you remember this, Jack, we were taught to ask questions, uncover a need, and then present a product, handle objections, and close. Okay, which that was that second part of it is where you kind of got into the bad side of slinging stocks, of you sold something to somebody whether they needed it or not, and that's still a part of the industry, man. That ethos is still makes its way all through our industry. You and I've talked about that, but if you learn that, uncover a client's needs, and you turn that around, you help them discover their goals. What do they want to accomplish? And these are the resources you have to accomplish these goals. And here is the difference in between. But if we manage these resources well, you can grow into these goals over time. Now you have the building blocks of good financial planning, and you're able to listen to a client and disseminate what they really want to accomplish. Because most people can't sit down and say, you know what, Chris, I want to retire at age 65. I feel like I need $3.24 million in the year 2039. I want to send 4 kids to college in the year 2024, and I'm going to need $427,000 to do that. If they can do that, they're a financial planner, right? So it's our job to sit down with them, say, tell me your goals, where are your resources, how do we take this combination of resources to help you reach those goals? And I think that grew out of sales, to be able to listen and to be able to take someone's questions and not handle them like an objection, but take their real questions and say, okay, how can I help you understand this and understand that, hey, you can succeed at this. You can do it. Let's go try. Let's go do more than try. Let's go succeed.
So let's talk a little bit about Sound Financial, the firm that you run. Tell us about your team, about some of your processes as it relates to what clients experience when they join Sound as a client.
Okay. So when somebody joins Sound as a client, when I think of Sound Financial from a standpoint of my role as managing partner, I think of 4 teams. Think of investments, operations, compliance, and marketing. And under marketing is the client communications. It's where a lot of the advisors sit. And so we'll take those backwards. So in that process, we educate our clients. We educate those future clients that are interested in what we're doing. And in that education, seminars pre-COVID, it's podcasts now during COVID, and there'll be both seminars and podcasts post-COVID. We want to just educate to our clients, because we've always felt like here that the more educated someone is, the more empowered they are to make good decisions. And so if we're able to sit down together and make good decisions together, our clients succeed. And so that marketing and that education is very important. And in the investment side, we work with Wealth Shield. That they are our investment team. They're an outsourced chief investment officer firm, and we sit down with them and we build both traditional models and we build faith-based models, and all of them are rules-based in that they are lean towards the quantitative end of the spectrum, lean towards trend-following trading types of ideals that we've smoothed out and made them more long-term investing in nature. And then in our operations and our compliance, of course, all that is in-house. We have a staff that do a wonderful job. And from a client experience standpoint, they're going to handle the paperwork. They're going to handle those requests. They're going to handle a lot of that client relationship. And that when a client calls in and interacts with us, going to take those requests, set things up for the advisor for them to follow up and do the job that they need to, just to make sure that we're constantly putting the client first. And you know what? There's a lot of good firms out there that do that. So I feel like I'm kind of using the same words that probably a lot of your other guests have used as well.
Well, yeah, but those are table stakes. And where I find the top advisors go above and beyond are in certain areas. And also they might have some type of unique ability in a niche. And I believe that your firm does an excellent job in the faith-based arena, not only having that interwoven into the fabric of your firm, but it's also part of your investment process. And you alluded to it a minute ago. Let's go deeper. Chris, what is faith-based investing to you in Sound Financial?
I'm going to start very personal and what's going to sound very spiritual, but it's going to come out very practical in just a second. So throughout the Bible, there's about 2,350 verses in the Bible on money. And 11 of Jesus's 40 parables dealt with money. Money is a topic that God knew we were going to screw up royally. And typically we screw it up like this, that we take success or security or status and we define that with money. And when we do that, we're setting up these little demigods in our life. And so if we succeed, and a lot of your listeners are going to be successful advisors and successful businessmen and women, and you kind of learn that, okay, you succeeded at this level and it wasn't enough. I need to succeed at this level, and I need to succeed at this level, and I need to succeed at this level. And the reason is that money that's coming from, it's never going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to fulfill you. And so when we sit down and we talk financial planning from this lens, we say, hey, money's just a tool. Money's not what you keep score with. Money's not what you define success with. Money is not where you look for your security. And where this helps is in the conversation of fear, especially as in the year that we've had in the last 12 months, where there's so much fear involved, both in the markets and the economy and just about people's health in general. Say, hey, listen, God is not giving you a spirit of fear, but one of love and power and discipline, and to be able to understand that God's providing, God's blessing, you're fine. Let's not be afraid of the future, but have hope in the future because we trust God. And that works itself into financial planning. Now, granted, you still have practical financial planning, which is budgeting and saving and investing, and how do you structure your models, and are you making money, or are you managing it against risk? And actually, the Bible talks about all that as well. But so there's a practical side that you cannot be so heavenly minded, earthly good, right? You can't just be churchy all the time and not get down get down to brass tacks and say, hey, okay, how do we manage your finances? And how do we manage investment money? And so when that weaves into that practical side of God has enriched you for a purpose, and this is out of 2 Corinthians 9, that to be generous, to enjoy some of those blessings, and to invest for the future, also that you and other people glorify God, you start seeing how our finances that we work so much of our life for start becoming a part of our fulfillment, but not the key part, not an important part. It's just a tool that we use within our life itself. And I think it puts money in its right place and allows people to be more successful because of it.
So that's the faith-based planning component. Let's get a little deeper on the investment component. And without recommendations or even individual stocks, can you talk conceptually about how you can apply your faith to portfolio construction?
Yes. Now you're going to get me thinking about compliance. Have I used words that are going to be compliant? I better not make actual recommendations.
That's why I said the question.
Put in our disclaimer right now. Past results are not indicative of future. I can't remember the rest of it. All right. So from an investment standpoint, you just kind of have the philosophy, and ESG investing is becoming very popular. I'm glad it is. ESG investing, biblically responsible, kind of grew out of biblically responsible, grew out of socially responsible would be a more accurate way to look at it. And so our take on this, or our lens, when we look at what the Bible says, that God made people as stewards of the earth. Okay. God made people in his image, that you were made in God's image. I'm made in God's image. Every listener is made in God's image. And so we believe that we should have an investment that does not harm people, that it just, it doesn't harm people, and it doesn't harm the environment, because we're stewards of the environment as well. I've said this a lot. This doesn't mean you can't stick a straw in the earth and take the oil out. It just means that when you do that, you shouldn't tear up everything around it. Okay. And so we take our investment process, and then we screen those investments through a couple of different screens. We use Biblically Responsible Investment Institute. We also use Inspire Insight, and that gives us a result of this company makes it through their screens, or this company does not make it through their screens, and it produces the reasons why. Okay. And Jay, this is where I always say this is true for ESG investing, faith-based investing, Christian ESG, biblically responsible, socially responsible, any of the terms that people could look up on this, that no investments are going to be 100% perfectly fit the investor's desires for ESG, and no matter what the genre is. And so I always tell folks, hold your faith tightly, okay? But hold these rules kind of lightly, because we're not going to be perfect at it. and nor is anyone else. And so it's really just walking down that road to recognize that I'm a steward of the earth. I'm a steward of the resources that God has given me, and I want to treat those well. And people are made in God's image, and the earth is a part of the resources we steward. So I don't want to harm either one of those. And all the while, I want to make dang good money while we do it.
Awesome. So, Chris, the title of this series is How I Serve. And the reason we call it that is I believe that there are excellent financial advisors out there that have a very unique way to help make sure clients don't fail retirement. And the biggest mistake an advisor can ever make is not have that long-term lens and forget the fact that you're dealing with real people's lives in retirement.
Yep.
Chris, how does Sound Financial serve their clients?
Ooh, no follow-up? You going to leave it that wide? You're not going to narrow it for me?
I mean, a wide question for Chris McAlpin gives a lot of runway.
Gives a lot of runway, man. I can go anywhere with that. How do we serve our clients? I think that when we think of our clients as a whole, this goes back to where you and I grew up in the industry. I think I learned there that a lot of times the industry forgets that you're dealing with real people and real people's real money that they earned over a real career. And I've been in conversations with asset managers before that it was like, hang on, boys. Listen, this is X amount of millions of real dollars earned by real people over a real career. And when you take a step back and you realize that every person that you're serving has an individual story, they have their life. They have their experiences, their perspectives, and their fears, their insecurities, their hopes, their dreams. And that in one small part of it, we get the privilege of helping them manage a lot of times the fuel of those hopes and dreams, or sometimes the cause of those concerns and those fears. And if we get the opportunity to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, let's plan this out well. You've done such a good job. You're going to be in great shape. You're good. Let's stay on this path. Or, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I have some fears for you 3, 5, 7 years down the road because you're doing some things right now. I'm not doing my job very well if I don't warn you and say, we got to make some changes. All right. And just in the money standpoint, that excites me, and that excites a lot of the people in our firm. We have a team that loves people, that our staff loves people. They do an awesome job of just stopping what they're doing and loving on a client anytime that they call in and serving them that way. And I think that is is that unique to Sound only? No, I hope not. I hope there's a lot of other advisors out there, and I think they are. There's a lot of other advisors out there that just love people and they put them first. But when we see their unique story, we're able to serve them better. And where that then comes from, just as an advisor, so often we're a lot like somebody's doctor or their pastor. We get told a lot of stories. I pray with a lot of clients. When I hear of a wayward child, I hear a cancer diagnosis, I hear of a fear for someone in their life. We really get to say, okay, tell me more. Tell me what's going on in your life, and be a listener and help them plan the financial aspect out of that.
Chris, a couple of years ago, you wrote a book called Failure and Success. The process of writing a book is painful, and sometimes it's not. But you and I have talked about the challenges of writing a book, but the output is what's so powerful.
Yeah.
Could you tell viewers a little bit about why you wrote the book and what they can learn from picking up a copy?
Man, I'm laughing about the painful process because this. We're working on another one, and man, I had a great co-writer with that book, Dave Jaslowski, one of our advisors. I wanted to put his name on the book as a co-author with me. He wouldn't let me. But it takes a team to write a book. I skipped class the day they taught writing at school for me, and so I need a whole team around me. So it's certainly not just me. The purpose of that book was we see in life and in the stories that we sit down with people as advisors. So often, it's not so often, we all have financial failures. Everyone has failed at something financially. The only people who have not failed financially haven't tried. It's kind of like people that think they're winners at some ball game and they never, ever lost. Well, they never, ever played, if that's the case. All right. We all have financial failures. So many people, though, this is a big mistake I see often, that they had a financial failure somewhere in their 20s and they never tried again. They got into a real estate deal. They lost a little bit of money and like, oh man, I just can't do this. They never try again. Or they invested in the stock market and they did a little bit of trading and they lost their rear end. Oh, I'm never going to do this. I'm a failure. I'm never going to try it again. And then all of a sudden they get to their 50s and they're like, oh my goodness, oh crap, I've screwed up. I've got to start managing money and being really aggressive so that I can retire. And that was the big hope that we wanted to stop people, to say, listen, it's okay. You failed, I failed. Everybody has failures in life. It does not define who you are, okay? And this is a path to go on. Learn from that failure, move forward, all right? I say this a lot. I say, that, listen, if Jesus Christ died on a cross to forgive us of our sins, if God Almighty wants to forgive us of rebellion against him, certainly he forgives us of petty financial failures that are inconsequential in our lifetime and certainly inconsequential in eternity. So we should look at those failures the same way, learn from them and move on. So that's really where the book starts. And there's stories intertwined in there that kind of demonstrate that point. But we want people to move towards success. And I think too often our entertainment and our media define success at this super high level, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg type of level that you're going to make bajillions of dollars, or you're going to be a member of this club, live in this neighborhood, and that is what defines you as success. Not at all. It doesn't define success at all. But where are you living a fulfilled life, and how does your financial life fit within that? And of course, there's more than a little bit of biblical truth weaved in and through that, and through that story, because that's where the source of truth comes from.
So Chris, where could viewers pick up a copy of your book?
They can go online. They can go to soundfsg.com/The Chase, and you'll see books from all of our team. So Dave wrote a book, does an excellent job. Clint wrote a book. It's an excellent book as well on trend following investing. And right there, you'll see our podcast, The Chase, as well.
Excellent. And let's close with that, Chris. Tell us a little bit about The Chase and what viewers of The Chase podcast would take away.
So the Chase podcast really grew out of COVID. It grew out of us doing videos for our clients. And we've just got this burning desire from a message standpoint that so often we sit down, and I've already talked a lot about this today, Jay, where people are chasing success and significance and security and status. And all of these can be good things. And we all actually can walk in some good steps to get those. But all while we're chasing good, God's chasing us with something that's far greater. He's chasing us with his grace and his mercy and his love. And that impacts our finances. That impacts how we make money, what we do with that money, and how we live life. And so that's kind of the tagline of the show is, while you're chasing good, God's chasing you with great. And so our podcast goes through topics just from a biblical, what's the purpose of money, and biblically stories, but it also gets into investing. So we recorded one today on emerging markets, and we've got some coming out on how to trade short-term and long-term on ETFs, and how to individually trade stocks, whether it's trend following or fundamental analysis. And so we get into some deep aspects on investing, but we're also looking at the world with a biblical lens, and we're looking at the investment world with the biblical lens. And sometimes my smart aleckness comes out in how we look at the world on things too.
I'm sure it does. It's a great podcast. I know it started out as a labor of love, but it's a really, really valuable asset, not only to your firm, but to folks who are subscribed, because you guys put out some great content. Chris, I appreciate you coming on. For podcast listeners, if you'd like to learn more, visit Sound Financial Strategies by going to soundfsg.com. That is soundfsg.com. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Jay.